Presenting from the InsideOut Literary Arts Project, Kennedy King, Arzelia Williams, and Terrell Morrow.
A poet is not a jukebox. Responding to Matthew, who says that teaching poetry to Detroit's youth is more fiddling while Rome burns.
Somewhere in Washington, Matthew was wearing a gray suit with a Star-Spangled Banner tie, working from 9 to 5 in a cubicle.
Stapling foreign policy papers, assigning emergency financial managers and placing restrictions on the fresh water that is in Michigan's Great Lakes.
At home, he sips Chardonnay with his nightly lobster bisque dinner.
Matthew believes any child that grows up with only one parent is destined to become a failure. Matthew says that wealth is all that matters.
That children should be in private schools, learning algorithms.
Learning periodic tables, learning computer engineering. He says that learning poetry is more fiddling while Rome burns.
But he's never been to Rome.
He doesn't even live in Detroit.
Other cities are built out of cotton dreams that tear at the seams, sewn shut with business suits.
But Detroiters are the base of a building, the brain behind manufactured cars, the artist behind the majesty of Cadillacs and Mustangs that transformed Woodward from asphalt into a dream cruise.
Someone has to write those instruction manuals. Someone has to design the car's curves instead of just criticizing, instead of being another cliche.
You cannot train a poet the way you train a dog, where a catcher could put a muzzle on you.
A poet can be taught things that even the leader of the free world wouldn't understand. To a poet, a word is not just a word.
They can manipulate words in a way that will turn a burning country into a garden, blossoming from the sun's surface.
Poetry doesn't just rebuild buildings.
It rebuilds lives.
Last time I checked, poetry can send a child to college. An elementary student has an imagination that can develop from a mustard seed into an entire kingdom.
Our visions begin with our desires.
Ever heard of Audre Lorde?
Or Robert Hayden, who said, "I believe it's true that only one person can make a difference."
Dudley Randall founded Broadside Press here.
He said, a poet is not a jukebox for someone to shove a quarter in his ear and get the tune that they want to hear.
A poet is not a jukebox. Poets don't play the hottest songs or the tunes you want to sing to. Poets don't need your ears to listen.
Some say, Detroit doesn't need another poet. Detroit doesn't need another artist. Just someone that will color inside the lines and is content with being in second place.
Some say kids don't need poem training. Excuse my parents for caring about the arts, for not thinking that their 14-year-old child needs to be worried about paying the bills.
What importance is education if we can't create? How can we teach someone math when we're born $1 short? How can we teach someone science when on paper it's the only time we don't feel segregated?
Someone who knows nothing about the craft can't tell me how unimportant poetry is.
Though Detroit may be in bankruptcy, when did it become a child's job to fix it?
An artist is not a financial manager.
When I think Detroit, I think the smells of my mother. Those home-cooked meals and life lessons. That house was filled with hardcore work ethic. Strong backs connected to broad shoulders, stretched forth brown arms that pushed me onto this stage. Let me put something poetic into plain English.
Dear Matthew,
I'd rather die than to not be distinguished.
Some may say that I wear rose-colored glasses.
it's all in perception. A city is not a run-on sentence that you can use your little red pens and make edits and corrections.
It doesn't need your proper grammar.
It can withstand gunshots to the heart without ever exposing its veins.
It can inhale smoke to the lungs, creating a simmering broil within the stomach of a city.
It can swallow the harsh insults and smother words that never actually left the paper. It doesn't need anyone's approval to tell a story.
Math and science are not the only tickets to the future. Remember those English classes you took in college? Remember Shakespeare? Remember Langston Hughes?
Even Martin Luther King Jr. was a poet.
Our lives begin to end the day that we become silent about the things that matter. The color of my skin does not define the content of my character.
Poetry has been the backbone of my existence.
Poetry is the remedy that you cannot find in any pharmacy.
Poetry can take a writer to the White House.
Maya Angelou said, "I must always be intolerant of ignorance, but understanding of illiteracy."
Some people unable to go to school are more educated and intelligent than college professors. Matthew.
Teaching youth poetry is not fiddling, but in fact being proactive.
So when you approve my city for bankruptcy, don't do it out of pity.
Do it remembering that we may not look like legislators and congressmen, but our positive stories are still worth headlines.